In one of our previous videos, we explored the biggest regrets of every assassin, and while diving into that, it became clear. The assassins aren't always the heroes we imagine them to be. There's a lot of moral gray in their actions, which naturally raises the question, what's the most evil thing each assassin ever did? In today's video, we're going to dig deep into their darkest deeds, and by the end, you might never see them the same way again. So, let's jump in. Altair is one of a kind, and if you've been following us, you know we've already explored nearly every side of him. But when it comes to his most evil or devilish act, you might think you already know. It starts shockingly early. He kills an old, frail man at the beginning of his story. But that's not where it ends. Altair deliberately improvises a mission, fully aware that his actions could harm his fellow assassins and put a powerful artifact at risk. And the consequences were devastating. His partner, Malik, is severely injured and loses an arm. And not just him, Malik's brother is killed as well. These events draw the Templars straight to Masyaf, threatening the very stronghold of the Brotherhood. Altair eventually prevents the Templars from seizing the castle, but the damage is done. By ignoring the three tenets of the Creed, he placed himself above everyone else, thinking he could outsmart the system. So if we had to pinpoint his darkest moment, it wasn't just the killings, it was considering himself above the Brotherhood, acting smart at the cost of others and causing chaos that could have destroyed everything. Edward started his journey driven by nothing but greed. Money was his world. His every action served his personal gain, and nothing else mattered. Because of this, it's no surprise that some of his acts crossed the line into evil. But if we're talking about the most evil thing that he did, this one takes the crown. After killing and impersonating Duncan, Edward ventured to Havana and for a brief time joined the Templars. Yes, the very organization the assassins oppose. Why? Because money was his only goal, and he did whatever it took to achieve it. During this short-lived alliance, Edward inflicted more damage on the assassins than the Templars ever could. He sold maps of assassins' bureaus across the Caribbean and even exposed their main operations. But it didn't stop there. He killed dozens of assassins who tried to capture the sage during that same period of time. Blinded by greed, Edward's actions weren't just morally questionable, they were catastrophically harmful, proving that sometimes self-interest can be deadlier than any enemy. This one might seem self-explanatory, but it's one that many players overlook. Assassin's Creed Odyssey lets you shape your own story, giving you the freedom to make almost any choice. But no matter how you play, one thing about Kassandra never changes. She's a Misthios, a mercenary. That freedom defines her and also exposes her darker side. Because when you really think about it, her actions during the Peloponnesian War weren't heroic. They were morally gray at best and evil at worst. Sure, in gameplay it feels like you're choosing the right side, fighting for gold or helping a cause, but through a logical lens, it's much darker than that. Kassandra kills regional leaders, burns supplies, and leaves soldiers starving. And kills, but without any second thoughts. Imagine the families she destroyed. For what? All for money. She tells herself it's for survival or that she's doing what she must. But in reality, she's causing far more harm to the world than good for herself. Freedom is her strength, but it's also what makes her dangerous. Now you might be thinking, Bayek? What could he possibly have done wrong? And honestly, the answer is simple yet painful. Bayek might not have committed evil directly, but his actions and inactions placed him in a morally gray light. After the tragic death of his son Khemu, Bayek was shattered. As one of the last Magi, his duty to protect Egypt should have mattered more than ever. But like every man consumed by vengeance, he stopped caring about the world. He abandoned Siwa, leaving behind the very people who needed him most. His only focus became hunting the members of the Order, no matter the cost. And while his revenge felt justified, it came at a price. Countless innocents were left without their protector. We don't blame him, anyone would break under that kind of loss. But viewed logically, turning your back on those you swore to protect, even in grief, still casts a shadow on your soul. He eventually found his purpose again, farming the Hidden Ones, and returned to protecting people. But this time, from the shadows. And the fact that this is the worst thing Bayek ever did speaks volumes about his character. Because even at his lowest, he still had a heart that sought justice. Shay is one of the few logical minds in the Assassin's Creed universe, a man who fought for what he truly believed was right. But that doesn't mean his path was pure. It was far from it. After joining the Templars, Shay's sense of righteousness began to blur. At first, his actions could almost be justified, killing assassins who stood in his way as he chased what he believed was the greater truth. It was brutal, but understandable. However, as time went on, that line between logic and cruelty started to fade. In his later years, while hunting the precursor box, Shay committed one of his darkest acts. He killed Charles Dorian, the father of Arno. And what makes it even worse is the fact that given the Templars' vast intelligence network, Shay likely knew Charles had a child. He could have found another way, but he didn't. Instead, he pulled the trigger, leaving a boy orphaned and setting off a chain of tragedy that would echo for years. So the question is, was Shay simply doing his duty, or had the darkness finally caught up to him? We cannot say for certain, but what we can say is that this act was undeniably evil, no matter the justification. Basim isn't just another assassin, he's literally the reincarnation of Loki, the god of mischief. So it's no surprise that his mischief comes with a heavy dose of darkness. In Assassin's Creed Valhalla, his entire story is driven by revenge. Revenge against those who captured and tortured his son. His goal was simple: make them pay. To do that, Basim sought out Sigurd, believing him to be Odin, the Mad One. Together, they traveled to Norway, where Basim became a trusted mentor to Eivor and the Raven clan. He fought beside them, risked his life for them, and earned their loyalty, all while hiding a sinister plan. Because behind every good deed was manipulation. Basim stayed close to them, gained their trust, and waited until the moment they began recalling memories of their past Isu lives. And that's when he revealed his true intentions. And if we strip away the myth and look at it through a human lens, this was his most evil act. He lived among them, shared their pain, their victories, and even knew that they weren't as monstrous as he believed. Yet, even then, he chose betrayal. But his manipulation didn't end there. Later, he deceived both Layla and Kassandra, convincing them that wielding the Staff of Hermes was for a so-called greater purpose. And as a matter of fact, he's still using the Assassin-Templar conflict to his advantage in the modern day. But no matter how he justifies it, Basim's actions were rooted in revenge, deception, and ego. And it's a proof that even gods can fall victim to their own darkness. Ezio Auditore may appear to be the most resolute and disciplined assassin we've ever seen, a man of honor who lives and breathes the creed. But beneath the legendary composure lies a side of him that's far more complicated. Throughout Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood, his actions are righteous, and even heroic. But by the time we reach Revelations, something changes. The once idealistic assassin becomes tired, burdened, and at times reckless. The three tenets of the creed that were once sacred to him start to blur. And it's in this game that we see Ezio commit one of his most immoral acts. In one mission, Ezio needed to infiltrate the Arsenal district, a place swarming with Ottoman guards. But instead of finding a simple and smarter way, he made a devastating choice. He used innocent civilians as bait, sparking a riot to create a distraction. The plan worked, and Ezio slipped through the chaos and completed his mission. But the cost was many innocent lives. And honestly, that doesn't sound like the Ezio we thought we knew. And if you want a deeper dive into this specific topic, we've already made a dedicated video on it, which you can check out easily through the link in the description. Anyway, one thing's for sure, even the greatest assassins can falter. We decided to skip Connor in this list and focus on Haytham instead. Why? Because Connor's evil acts often stemmed from manipulation rather than free will. But Haytham, however, is a different story. As a Templar Grand Master, you can already imagine the lengths he'll go to maintain order. In Assassin's Creed 3, Haytham is a devoted Templar, doing whatever it takes to enforce peace through the Order. For a brief moment, he even works alongside his son, Connor, trying to persuade him to join the Templars. He manipulates him so subtly that Connor begins to believe in his father's cause. But when loyalty to the Order takes precedence, Haytham does not hesitate. Many argue that he didn't want to kill his son, that he was simply holding back. But the evidence says otherwise. He was ready to sacrifice even his own child for the mission. Even though he loved Connor, this intent alone is bone-chilling, a true mark of moral darkness. And before anyone says Connor did the same in battle, remember this. Connor was given a choice. Haytham's son resisted, and Haytham responded not with negotiation but with deadly force, fully willing to kill his own blood in service of his cause. It's a stark reminder that for some, loyalty to ideology can outweigh even family, and that can be its own kind of evil. When it comes to Eivor, we're not talking about calculated evil, but rather the brutal reality of being a Viking. And let's be honest here, what were Vikings famous for? Obviously raids, pillaging, and leaving terror in their wake. And as King Alfred himself puts it in the cinematic trailer, they murder and kill blindly. For those on the receiving end, it's a terrifying reality. Homes burned, food stolen, entire communities left starving for months. That's evil. Eivor may not be cruel in a personal sense, but she still raids villages and churches. It might feel thrilling in gameplay, but for those living in that era, it was pure horror. And since you've stuck around until this point, here's a fun and dark fact. Assassin's Creed Valhalla lets you make a variety of choices, some morally questionable, some outright pure evil. One of the worst? Well, cheating on your own brother Sigurd. Yeah, just imagine that. Even by Viking standards, that's truly unforgivable. Not directly, but indirectly, these twins are responsible for a lot of suffering, which you might even forget behind the massive set pieces. For Jacob, he's reckless, and his shenanigans start right in the start. He blows up an entire train. Still, he has an excuse that he completed the mission whatsoever. Furthermore, in the story, he creates a gang called the Rooks. The intention of this gang was to oppose the Templar gang, Blighters. But this doesn't take away the fact that gangs aren't exactly public service. Their methods are the same as any other, and the civilian harm would be caused nonetheless. As for Evie, she tries to be stealthy but sometimes falters. In her pursuit for the Shroud of Eden, she wanted to get it at any cost. And in this mission, in many instances, collateral damage occurs, and sometimes even moral compromises as well. So although their acts are directly evil, their intention is good. But this doesn't mean that there's some sort of safety to it. Indirectly, they might have killed hundreds, but nobody pays attention to it. When it comes to Naoe, there are many morally questionable moments in her story, but if we focus on the most evil thing that affected others, it's clear where it lies. Right at the beginning, when we first take control of her, Naoe participates in the Iga raid and kills an Order member named Ido Yoshiro, not knowing who he truly was. Later, after being injured, she is cared for by an old man named Soren and a young boy, Junjiro. It's then revealed that the man she killed was Junjiro's father. Naoe apologizes, understanding the pain of losing someone you love, and is even moved by Junjiro's refusal to seek revenge at such a young age. As for Yasuke, his case is a bit more straightforward. He too participated in the Iga raid, killing countless Igans and destroying the Japanese branch of the Assassin Brotherhood indirectly. While he later regrets his actions, this remains the most evil thing that he did in the game, an act with consequences that ripple far beyond his intentions. Both stories show that sometimes even the best of intentions or lack of awareness can lead to acts with devastating moral weight. Arno Dorian is easily one of the most underrated assassins, but his story isn't without its dark moments. Throughout the game, Arno is obsessed with protecting Elise. His focus on their relationship often makes him reckless. He even kills people when he feels that the bond is being threatened, including his own mentor. But one of the biggest moments comes when he could have easily killed Germaine early on and prevented much of the chaos that followed. Instead, he chose to save Elise, letting Germaine escape. That decision alone eventually comes back to haunt him in the final mission where Elise is killed. So Arno's arguably most evil act? Prioritizing his personal desires over everyone else, with little regard for the consequences. So based on all the evidence that we guys shared with you, we believe Basim is the most evil assassin out there. Because while the other assassins were evil to an extent, Basim is not. He is still manipulating the modern day conflict and even did some terrible deeds in the past. So, without a doubt, if we're talking about the most evil assassin in the whole series, it's none other than Basim. And that's it for today's video. We hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, then make sure to give it a big thumbs up and also subscribe for more content like this one. We'll see you in the next one. Till then, take care and goodbye.